Thank you. We're used to in our country calling attorneys doctor, but in the United States it doesn't happen very often. So Lorenzo, thank you for that. And thank you to you and Libby for inviting me today. Well, without further ado, I'd like to thank the candidates not only for being here today, but for your willingness to serve and for sharing your views with us today. All of the candidates have been invited. I believe that Eddie Gonzalez couldn't be with us today. The candidates are Alberto Armada, Alex Dominguez, Pedro Garcia, and Carlos Gobel. And gentlemen, if you would please introduce yourselves. Starting with you, Mr. Armada.
This is the 2 minutes?
This is a 2-minute.
Okay, thank you very much. Mi nombre es Alberto Armada y yo he sido un residente de Miami-Dade por 53 años. It's important for me to tell you a little bit about myself. I am a professional commercial and residential appraiser. I am not a politician. I am not going to lie here to you today. I'm not going to exaggerate one single thing, and I'm not going to talk about non-issues. It's interesting that I'm here before LULAC and SALID, so that you know a little bit of me. 40 years ago, I was a member of SALID. I was happy to work with Javier Bray on something which happened to the city of Miami, which was called the consent decree, and forced the city to then employ minorities. I was glad to be a part of that. I left in '79 after we had a dispute in terms of political considerations with regards to some members wanting to go and entertain the Castro brothers, and I could not and would not, under any circumstances, participate on that. I'm here today because I feel very sincerely when I tell you that I am the best qualified candidate for this position at this time. I am an MAI designated appraiser. That is the highest commercial designations that you will find in the country. I also hold the SRA designation from the same institute, from the same organization, the Appraisal Institute, and I also hold a CCIM designation from a commercial investment group. Let me say real quickly, since I have only 30 seconds, under no circumstances do I believe that we should emulate Broward County to do what has to be done in Dade County. I think Dade County has enough brain power to be able to resolve our problems ourselves. And I will not under any circumstances continue the lawsuit that some of us will entertain with regards to having greater jurisdiction over this department by the state versus the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Armada.
First of all, thank you, LULAC and SALID, for having us this evening. I appreciate it. My name is Alex Dominguez. I have a finance degree in international finance business from FIU. I also hold a master's degree from Barry University in public administration. I think what you're going to find in this election, this is an election about solving the problems that we have at the appraiser's office. When you look at the problems, we have to look at the facts. You know, we hear a lot of rhetoric. We hear a lot of things being said by different candidates and politicians, but at the end of the day, the facts don't lie, the numbers don't lie. If you look at what's been happening in Dade County for those of you who can't see it, for the last 13 years, okay? We live in Miami-Dade, Broward is right next to us. Broward is supposedly playing by the same rules that we're supposed to be playing by. They're supposed to be appraising property the same way we appraise property. Now look at the number of appeals incrementally growing year after year after year after year. And look what happened in 2008 to 2011 when we didn't include short sales and foreclosures. Okay, that's on us because Broward did include them and they don't have an inundation of appeals like we do in Miami-Dade. The next thing I want to show you is look at the percentage of the appeals that are being approved in Dade County. On an average, 47% versus 7% in Broward. That tells me that the initial appraisal, the initial assessment that we're sending out to our residents is incorrect. There should be no reason why it's 47% in Miami-Dade versus 7% in Broward. It's the equivalent of going to a restaurant and asking your waiter to check your bill 100 times, and 47 times he comes back and tells you that he overcharged you, he's gonna give you money back. When we do that in Dade County, Not only do we have to give the money back, we have to give the money back with 12% interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Good evening. Thank you to Salad and Lulek to invite us here. My name is Pedro J. Garcia. I'm the only one that know what he's talking about because I spent 4 years as the Miami-Dade County property appraiser. I was the first elected property appraiser in Miami-Dade County. And as you know, I lost my second election because of the absentee ballot. We will not talk about that. When Mr. Dominguez showed you a percentage of appeals and what happened here, he tell you 50% of the truth. But he didn't tell you that we have almost 1 million properties in Miami-Dade County. So when we're talking about a 69,000 appeals, so we're talking about a 6.9% only. So we have about 93 to 94% of the people that agree with the values of those properties. So you have to tell the 100% of the truth, and that's what I'm going to tell you. But let me tell you, I've been working for 38 years as a real estate appraisal in Miami-Dade County. I started many, many years ago. I believe Mr. Gobel was not even born when I was doing appraisals in Miami-Dade County. So believe me, I got 40 years experience as a realtor, 38 years as a real estate appraisal. I'm a state certified general real estate appraisal. I do commercial and residential appraisal. So believe me, I've done every appraisal possible in Miami-Dade County, and I'm going to keep doing that. And that's the reason I'm running for this position, because I want to be back to finish what I started, establishing the right and fair value of all the properties in Miami-Dade County, and I'm going to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garcia. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carlos Goebel. I am a native Miamian, born and raised here in the county. Nacido aquí, pero de padre cubano. I am a graduate of Christopher Columbus High School. I also am a graduate of Florida International University. I have undergraduate degrees in finance and in real estate. And I also have my MBA from the University of Florida. Now, I too am a professional appraiser. I am the only candidate here who's been a special magistrate in Broward County. I'm the only candidate here who's an appraiser who manages an active office, actually has a staff. And I'm the only candidate with recent administrative experience. I've been an executive director or managing director at 3 South Florida valuation firms. And over the course of my career, I have reviewed, consulted on, or completed over 8,000 assignments representing more than $3 billion of South Florida real estate. I'm a designated member of the Appraisal Institute. I also sit on the board of directors of the Appraisal Institute. And something that I have that no other appraiser in this race can mention is that I'm a graduate of the Appraisal Institute's Leadership Development and Advisory Council. Now, the Appraisal Institute selects 100 appraisers nationally every year to represent them at LDAC in Washington, D.C. I've had that honor bestowed upon me 3 times. I'm also the only candidate up here who is formally endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police and the Concerned Citizens Political Action Committee. We all sat before these boards. These boards recommended that I be property appraiser. They believe in my agenda. They see the qualifications. They understand that not only do you need to be a professional appraiser to hold this position, but you have to be competent and you have to be qualified. Fortunately, I think I fulfill those qualifications. Thank you.
So thank you, gentlemen. I have a total of 6 questions for each of you, and then at the end, I'm going to ask you to give some closing statements. So we'll start with the first question, and Mr. Armada, we'll start with you. That is, what is the single most important issue you would address immediately after taking office, and how would you do so?
Well, there's actually 2 that I have to tell you I will immediately address, and that is I'm going to interview everyone in the department and find out what their qualifications are and how they fit in their job descriptions. I can do that because I have 20 years experience in government, which is doing some of those times were extensive work. I would also have to tell you that the truth of the matter is that I'm going to simplify the process. I'm going to, instead of having you guys read the Miami-Dade.gov and seeing 3 different square footage for the property, for your house. I'm going to use 1 for residential, and I'm going to use possibly 2 for commercial. That should simplify things tremendously. The moment that we start doing that, we're going to alleviate the employees from all sorts of complicated and burdensome calculations that are not necessary. Okay, we're going to create greater efficiency in the employees by doing that, and we're going to focus on the valuations. We had some time to rebut certain things. I want you to understand that in terms of the total assessments in Miami-Dade County, it's about 50% residential and it's about 50% commercial. So you have to have a complete and profound understanding of the subject matter if you're going to address that. I worked as a special magistrate for Dade County for 6 years. I resigned on 2014 to run for this position. I understand perfectly well what needs to be done. I'm going to try to do it in that fashion and given my experience in government. Thank you very much.
Let me go back.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, the first thing we need to do when we go to whoever gets elected is to solve the problem with the appeals. This is a problem that is the root of all the problems that we have, and it's starting to affect the school board. We were still hearing 201,000 appeals since 2011. That's 3 years ago. Okay, and like I mentioned earlier, not only are we not collecting the money to put inside our coffers, the school system is starting to suffer. And recently the Miami Herald, for those of you who don't know, had a series of stories about how much the school system is suffering, that to the point where the superintendent of Dade County schools had to go to Tallahassee to figure out what was going on, that because they were $60 million short. Now this is caused by the initial appraisal being incorrect. If we can fix that, and on my first day on duty would be to put together a task force to figure out there's a problem with the original appraisal. We need to put people in a room and figure out what we're doing wrong. There's a variable we're using, whether it's with the computer model, whether it's human error, but there is an error. And we've been doing it for 13 years. We've had appraisers heading the appraiser's office for 13 years. Nothing has been done. I've been a realtor for 20 years. I've been a pharmaceutical executive. I think the former appraiser we had, Mr. Lopez Cantera, was on his way to doing a somewhat decent job of bringing this to light. You don't need an appraiser right now at the appraiser's office. What you need is somebody who has leadership skills and somebody who can solve the problems going forward. That's what we need. We need leadership. We don't need a number cruncher. A fee appraiser is not the same thing as a mass appraiser. Totally different things. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The difference between an appraisal and a politician is Mr. Dominguez ran in 2012 for representative, in 2013 for commissioner, and now in 2014 he wants to be the property appraiser in Miami-Dade County. If you have no knowledge whatsoever when we're talking about appraisal, and you have to sit down with the owner of any commercial property, what are you going to discuss? You're going to allow the employees to tell the people and discuss the values of those properties, or they're going to be part of that? So believe me, this is not a political position. This is a position for a property appraisal, somebody with the experience, somebody with the education about values in properties in Miami-Dade County. The first thing I'm going to do is keep doing what I did before, establishing the fair and right value of all the properties in Miami-Dade County. That's where you see how many of those appeals have been dropping. From 2008, when I was the first elected property appraiser in 2009, we have 114 appeals. 14,000 appeals. Now we have around 69,000. So we're talking about that reduction is about 50%. And when you're talking about a percentage on 1 million properties in Miami-Dade County, you figure out that it's a very small percentage of the people. Another thing that I'm going to keep doing.
How would you carry that out, Mr. Garcia? The question was, what would you do and how would you do it? If you can please share that with us.
I will keep doing what I did before because I was the property appraiser, and I'm going to keep fighting the homestead fraud. That's important that we keep until we eliminate complete that, and that was my beginning. And when he's talking about Mr. Cantera followed exactly what I was doing, and the only thing he did was keep going the same way I did.
Thank you very much. Mr. Goebel, on day one, what would be your first order of business and how would you carry it out?
Well, I promise to stay on point, okay? That's first of all. And I think that speaks volumes because anybody that has had any type of interaction with the property appraiser's office over the last six years, they'll all tell you that it's a model for inefficiency. So I think the first thing you need to do is come in and make customer service a priority and make efficiency a priority. And it's a very difficult thing to do because for the last 6 years, they've done the complete opposite. But you lead by example. I'm usually the first one in my office, last one to leave. People need and desire and thirst for leadership. This office has had very little of that over the last 6 years. You make customer service a responsibility and a priority, and by customer service, you identify who your customers are. Who are they? The tax-paying citizens of this county. They deserve the best workforce possible. Dade County has over 900,000 properties. In that office, they have more than 340 employees servicing these 900,000 properties. By comparison, Broward County has just over 700,000 properties, but they only have 207 employees. Now, it doesn't mean we need a reduction in workforce, but what we need to do is have this workforce work efficiently and effectively to the best interest of our taxpayers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goebel. Mr. Dominguez, we'll start with you this time. And the question is, recently, the current property appraiser dropped a lawsuit against Miami-Dade County filed by his predecessor over the powers of the property appraiser. Do you feel this office should be independent from the governance of the mayor and the board of the county commissioners? And if so, why?
Okay, first of all, I'm someone who believes that we need to follow the will of the voters. In 2008, we all voted in substantial numbers to make the office of the appraiser independent of the mayor and the commissioners. Till this day, we have not done that. Right now, what you have is a department head leading an organization where his hands are tied. Nothing can be done. The lawsuit was filed, and I'm glad to say that 3 of us, Mr. Gonzalez, who's not here, support independentizing the office. The other 2, who I consider the old guard, wanted to stay status quo. You've seen the numbers that I brought, and one of the reasons I brought the numbers is we can make accusations about him or him being a politician. Look, when you're serving your community in any capacity, I don't remember the last time somebody who ran, I don't remember the last time somebody got criticized for running for office and trying to help his community. As a candidate, I've gotten more than $3 million for public housing for the people in my district. I'll have the same effort, I'll give you guys the same effort as your property appraiser. But right now, what we need to do is independendize this office because there is too much political pressure on the appraiser from the mayor and the commissioners. And that's the reason why you see those numbers. Year after year after year after year, we've had appraisers running that office, beholden to the mayor, beholden to the commissioners, and we are all, everybody in this room is overtaxed. What Mr. Garcia said about only 10%, that's because the other 90% haven't appealed. Believe me, numbers don't lie, statistics don't lie. If 100% of the people appeal their taxes, 47% would get overturned in Dade County. Thank you.
Mr. Garcia, what's your view on this issue?
I will drop it immediately because let me tell you, they don't have any experience whatsoever. I spent 4 years as a property appraiser. I never have one call from the mayor. I never have one call from the commissioner to tell me what was the value of the properties in Miami-Dade County or if they need to increase the value of Miami-Dade County. They knew that when I figure out the value of the properties in Miami-Dade County, I will supply to them. And that's it. Nobody called the office, and I have all the dependents that I need to work as an elected official. And I feel very proud to tell you for 4 years, never one I received a call from the mayor of the commissioners. I will drop the suit immediately because the only thing that we're looking for that suit was to fire people from Miami-Dade County property appraiser. But they tried to fire 70 people in one time, and that was not nice. And that's what I'm going to protect everybody there. And I will drop that suit immediately after I've been elected.
Thank you very much. Mr. Goebel, what do you think?
Thank you. Not continuing the lawsuit is very myopic in nature. And the reason being is because public perception is reality. The reason that lawsuit is important is because this office needs to be seen as independent by the public. Now, We were the last county in Florida out of 67 counties to make property appraiser an elected position. We are currently only one of 3 counties statewide that don't have this as an independent offer through the Constitution, but instead through the county charter. That means that we're under the supervision of the mayor, the county commission, and the county finance committee. Saying that this lawsuit shouldn't continue and that the office shouldn't be independent shows very poor business acumen. At the end of the day, to be an effective leader, to be able to push forth your agenda, and to be able to effectively manage an office, you need to be independent. More importantly, the taxpayers of Miami-Dade County need to know it's not a matter of whether or not these men have integrity. I believe each and every one of these men would stand up and not have an undue bias or undue influence on property assessments. But it's for future property appraisers, and more importantly, to show the general public, listen, we are our own office, independent of any other administration. We're not here to fund a gap in budgets or in revenue. We're here to fairly assess, not over-assess, not under-assess, simply fairly assess. Allow the property appraiser to do their job and be independent.
Mr. Armada?
This is a very important question, and I already addressed it. I am not going to proceed with that lawsuit under any circumstances. I understand what Pedro had said before with regards to the fact that the intent, and I can see why the intent would be to fire people. But I've looked at this issue a little bit further since we started to discuss it. And the question is not so much to fire certain people, but to hire certain people. Listen, let me explain something. In West Palm Beach County, there are 6 MAIs, the same designation that I have, working in the commercial division, and 2 SRAs, the same designation that I and Carlos share. In Broward County, there's 2 MAIs working in that department. Those are the people that are basically giving the best examples and the best knowledge to share with regards to the assessments. You know, I'm not going to submit, like Alex is suggesting, a panel to discuss this. I know exactly what needs to be done with regards to the assessments, okay? I am not someone that is not able to only address the residential side. I'm going to address both. This is what I do for a living for 22 years on my own. I believe that it's a non-issue. It's a straw issue to bring this up. It's costly. It's unnecessary. There is no commission, no school board that's going to come and tell me to affect the assessments one way or the other. Only the market is going to tell me what to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia, we'll start with you this time. And the question is, homestead fraud has been rampant in Miami-Dade County. What will you do to curb this abuse?
It's not what I'm going to do. It's what I did. When I started in 2009, we have a lien on 2008 of about $2 million some dollars liens. On my first year, I started working to stop homestead fraud. So we increased that lien to about $5 million. The next year, we have another $5 million. 2011, we have $7 million. Finally, we were working on a program on the computer to finalize and get information regarding people committing fraud in Miami-Dade County. So finally, we got a program, and in that particular year, we liened $26 million to people that were taking advantage of everybody here, including myself, and not paying the fair taxes they have to pay. They were taking the advantage, and that's what I did. And the next year, there was a reduction of about $20 million. I was not the property appraiser in that time. And it's been decreasing because the people are learning that if you commit fraud in Miami-Dade County, with the program that we have, we're going to get you. And they're going to cost you a lot of money. And that's what I did. And that's what I'm going to keep doing until I finish to clean the entire area. I wish they can give me also the medical system so I can clean that situation that we have in Miami-Dade County. And believe me, I can do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
I mean, it's funny, you get called a politician, but I like the way that we spin the numbers. Now, when you look at the numbers, in 2009, when they collected $5 million in homestead exemption fraud, there were numerous software companies operating all over the United States, okay? We've got software companies all over the United States helping municipalities collect homestead exemption fraud. Look what was collected in 2009, 5 million. 2010, 5 million. 2011, 7 million. 2012, an election year. The head of the police department started criticizing the appraiser's office because they weren't going after homestead exemption fraud. All of a sudden, miraculously, we have a 300% increase in what we find in homestead exemption fraud. That's a terrible job. That's a knee-jerk reaction to an election. And let me show you how much homestead exemption fraud actually exists in Dade County. There's over $200 million a year. The numbers don't lie, and that's why I brought these slides. The national average is 5%. There's 450,000 parcels. If you multiply 22,500, which is 5%, times the average lien, that gives you $202 million. And that's the average in the United States. As you know, we live in Dade County. Fraud is usually double or triple when we talk about any type of fraud. If we use double, it's 45,000 parcels times 9,000, which is the average lien that we found. And there's more than $405 million that we're leaving on the table every single year. And if you don't believe it, ask people who live around you, people who rent. There's fraud, people. Don't believe the hype.
Thank you very much. Mr. Goebel.
To believe that fraud isn't a problem in Dade County is very naive. We lead the nation in mortgage fraud. We lead the nation in Medicare fraud. We lead the nation in income tax fraud. We lead the nation in insurance fraud. What are the chances we're going to lead the nation in homestead exemption fraud? I think it's pretty damn good. That being said, it has to be a focal point of anyone's agenda who anticipates being property appraiser. Bottom line is, not enough was done until 2012. Before that, it was something that wasn't addressed, which is a shame, because now we feel the effects where millage rates are going up, there are budget shortfalls, and these are revenues, much needed revenues municipalities need to fund services for you, the taxpayers. So not only do we have to continue to institute the right technology and the software, but that only addresses the homestead exemption fraud people that do it inadvertently. You have purposeful, fraudulent people. A software program cannot fight that. You need boots on the ground. Part of my platform is to increase the police force and presence within the department and to strengthen the ties with existing municipal police departments to further combat homestead exemption fraud.
Thank you, Mr. Goebel. Mr. Armada.
And that would be a waste of time. Let me explain something to you with regards to fraud. No one here in this board, okay, is going to say that they're in favor of fraud being continued. Homestead exemption fraud has to be addressed and has to be addressed vigorously by all concerns. Not just that, agricultural exemption frauds also have to be addressed. More so than not, okay? Fraud, as I understand it, when special magistrates go to defend assessments improperly and abuse the lack of information that property appraisers have, that to me is fraud, and that has to be addressed. The question of homestead exemption fraud, I believe in what Pedro has been saying, and the numbers are indicating this. Okay, the numbers are indicating this. The more people are becoming aware that their hands are being burned, their neighbors' herds are being burned, they're going to stop. And that's why we're seeing a decline. What Alex is in his chart isn't telling you is that next year, for 2014, it's even less. It's not because the efforts has lessened, it's because people are more cognizant and they don't want to get caught with this situation. Certainly, in regards to fraud, any type of fraud, I'm going to continue to pursue that and fight that as much as possible using, as Carlos suggested, the interdependency among the different agencies and departments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Goebel, in April of this year, the school superintendent spoke against what he saw as a sluggish value adjustment board that is inefficient and has hampered the ability to collect taxes. If you are elected, what would you do to streamline the process?
Well, that's a very tricky question, because the truth of the matter is anybody that addresses and answers that question is misleading. The Property Appraiser's Office has nothing to do with the Value Adjustment Board. I happen to know this because I'm a special magistrate. These are two independent agencies that don't interact, and they're not supposed to on purpose, to keep legitimate the process of appeals. So the fact that the VAB may be in disarray, and I know that some of our members here have served on the Dade County VAB, the fact you can only control what the property appraiser does. How are we going to make that process efficient? Well, Alex Dominguez isn't exaggerating when he tells you that 70,000 appeals were filed in Miami-Dade County. All right. By comparison, only about 20 to 25,000 are filed in Broward. Now, what's most concerning isn't the number of appeals. To be honest, if your property is overassessed, I want you to appeal. I want to make sure we get it right. What's most concerning is the success rate of those appeals. In Dade County, it's about half. In Broward County, it hovers around 10 to 12%. What does that tell you? It tells you one of two things. Number one, properties are either being overassessed, or number two, the Property Appraiser's Office doesn't have a qualified staff to defend their values. Neither of those scenarios are acceptable, and they both need remedy quickly.
Thank you so much. Mr. Armada, how do you feel on this issue?
Well, I agree with Carlos on this point, particularly with regards to the question of the independence between the VAB, of course, and the Property Appraiser's Office. But look, most significantly, I have to say that I was a special magistrate from 2008 to 2014. I resigned 2014 in order to run this. So I know perfectly well what's going on. With regards to that article, I'm the proof. I'm the proof that those kinds of things do happen. That as the gentleman Alberto Corballo said something about, I forget the word, but he said something about some kind of behind-the-scenes kind of operation. Well, there are some special magistrates that did not like the fact that I ruled against them consistently because they brought junk to me. And so I was one of those folks that was not under any circumstances heard their cases. Now, you want to check? Please do. I know for a fact that that's the case. So indeed, there are some things that are going on with regards to the VAB and the special magistrates that have to be looked at very carefully. One suggestion that I've made earlier is that these special magistrates have to be, that the PA property appraisers that are coming in to assist to support the assessments have to be very well trained, and that's a very important point.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Dominguez, what would you do to remedy the problem that has been identified?
Well, look, first of all, this is a good example of having a business mind versus somebody who's an appraiser who can't look at the situation the way we're supposed to. Mr. Cantera went to Broward and found out that in Broward, they were sending out the trim notices in July on the internet. Why is that important? We've never done that in Dade County. We wait till August and we only give people 30 days to appeal. It's not enough time. In Broward, they put it on the internet, gives people an extra 30 days to go into the office, negotiate with the appraiser, and avoid having to file an appeal. That's a smart thing to do. We have never done that until recently. We've had appraisers in there for 13 years who haven't come up with that plan of action. It is a consistent status quo. We cannot continue to do the same things year after year after year after year. And now it's starting to affect my kids, your kids, and some of your grandkids because they can't get the money that's supposed to go to them. And I can tell you right now, going back to the software we were talking about, the software that Mr. Garcia implemented, which we retrofitted, is no longer in existence. And the reason we only got $20 million, and the facts are the facts, is because we don't have a software system right now. They're trying to retrofit another one instead of putting it out to procurement so we can pick which is the best one to use. The software system he used, we had to give back 10% of all the penalties that we recouped to the software company. In Broward County, we don't do that. They do it the right way. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia?
Yes. Talking about what he's talking about, the program that we create. The program was so good that we come out to $26 million lien in 1 year. And you know why the company quit on us? Because they were getting only 10% on the penalties, 10% on the interest. They didn't make any money, and they want to quit on us, and that's the reason they created a new program now. So believe me, that program will work. Talking about the, what was the question of the?
The question was that there was a complaint that the VAB was operating very slowly, and it was hampering the ability to collect taxes, which was affecting the school system.
I believe the BAP has a lot of problems. The property appraiser doesn't have to do anything with the BAP. But Mr. Cantera, by the way, spent almost $1 million renovating the 7th floor at the office from your money, my money. And he put it in there to bring the people from the houses to discuss the adjusted or values on the properties. The people didn't show because the parking space in downtown Miami is difficult and expensive. So what happened is he created and started slowing down the Value Adjustment Board's agendas. So it spent about 2 to 3 months. Mr. Armada can be a witness there. And instead of 60 cases per day per magistrate, let me just finish this. He come out with the idea of 340 cases every single day for one magistrate. Are you telling me that those magistrates have sufficient time to make a correct decision when somebody bring an appeal to them? I'm sorry. That was created by Mr. Cantera, and he created a problem.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Armada, if we can address this to you again. Question number 5, the elderly live on a fixed income and suffer the greatest from hikes in property taxes. What will you do to assist them with this financial burden?
Very easy. We're going to go to the lower end of the value range to estimate and establish fair and just market values for homes, for residences. Look, as an appraiser, I can tell you that market value is easiest understood in terms of a range. The value of this property is between that and that. That's the easiest thing to do. The most difficult thing is to come up with a point value, okay? My suggestion is that we should always do what the market reflects. But when it comes to the assessments, when it comes to establishing fair and just market value, we should go towards the lower end of the value indicators in those particular markets. And I think by doing that, okay, we're going to minimize appeals. By doing that, we're going to minimize conflict. By doing that, we're certainly going to help the elderly that my father and my mother, that thank God are still alive, okay, have to pay, taxes on those properties that they own. So clearly, I would say that that's the easiest thing for me to suggest on this matter.
Thank you. Mr. Dominguez?
When I introduced myself this evening, I told you the most important thing that we had to fight was the number of appeals being filed and the number that are being granted. Now, when you go and file an appeal, you don't just show up and they grant it to you. You have to show proof. Now, we are showing proof 47% of the time that we are being overassessed on our values, and the elderly have been suffering for 13 years unnecessarily, okay? Now, Mr. Armada just said, well, we'll start using the lower end. Why haven't we been using the lower end? When I talk to some of the appraisers in the office, if there's 5 sales on your block, and one's 200, one's 250, one's 220, one's 230, and there's one for 500, we're using the one for 500. And that's one of the reasons why we have so many appeals. The Value Adjustment Board question that was asked previously, they just did a study and they said that the Value Adjustment Board in Miami was the fairest in Florida. Now, the Value Adjustment Board isn't operating incorrectly. The appraisal's office is flooding them with appeals. The appeals lawyers are coming to Dade County. They're not going to Broward because they won't make any money in Broward. If only 7% are being overturned, they're not making any money. If I were an attorney, I'd be in Miami-Dade County because I know that every time I file 2 appeals, one of them is going to get granted and I'm going to put money in my pocket. And now what that's created is a cottage industry of lawyers who have descended upon Miami-Dade because they know that we don't have our act together. One of the candidates up here said that we shouldn't copy Broward. I say yes. I say you copy what works, just like major corporations borrow from other major corporations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dominguez. Mr. Garcia, how would you protect the elderly?
I believe the elderly is being protected, but not heavy enough to help them 100%. We have homestead on the properties for the elderly. We have the seniors to have another reduction. And the last year where I was the property appraiser, they come out with the new idea of anybody that live on the house for more than 25 years, and that property is worth less than $250,000 has an additional reduction. We also have deductions for people with handicap, militaries, they die in the war, the wife and the will not have to pay any taxes. So, but we have to talk to the people in Tallahassee. This is the people that have to make the laws that we can follow in Miami and to try to help the senior people, because those people are living on a day-to-day basis. They're getting a small amount of money from the Social Security, and this year they're very lucky. They got an increase of 1.5%. So everybody that receives $700, they're going to receive an additional $10. And you let me know what they can do with another $10. And this is the matter that we have to do. But we have to work with the people in Tallahassee to establish the new laws that we can protect the elderly.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Goebel?
Thank you. I think this goes back to the topic of customer service. It's not just protecting the elderly, it's helping the elderly. And you need to be proactive in that approach. So what does the property appraiser's office have to do? They have to go out and be amongst the elderly. They need to well inform the elderly of what exemptions are available to them. Widower's exemption, homestead exemption. You know, you need to further expand public workshops. Make sure town hall meetings are being held and being actively entertained, where people are actually in attendance. This is all about customer service and efficiency. More importantly, the property appraiser isn't here to lowball values, okay? You serve two clients and two customers. Not only do you serve taxpayers, but municipal governments depend on you for their revenue. So you need to remain impartial. By saying that you're gonna purposefully lowball values and be at the lowest end, schools suffer, police department suffers, fire department suffer. These are all services we need to, that we take advantage of. The idea is to assess fairly. Not overassess, not underassess, assess fairly, and help seniors, help the elderly understand how they're being taxed. What options are available to them? Go out to them. Don't wait till they come to you. Be proactive. Thank you.
Interesting, thank you. Finishing statement, okay. Yeah. Okay. No, well, not yet. One more question. I'm sorry. Can we make a note of it and remember and come back? Okay. Mr. Dominguez, really quick. What is the one skill that you possess that makes you the ideal candidate for property appraiser?
It's honesty. Look, when you run for public office, you can look at my track record. He brought up that I ran for commissioner. I ran for state representative. I want to help the people in my district. I'm tired of seeing people get elected who don't do the right thing, who take money from lobbyists. You know, we all complain. The Dolphins, they want to put the stadium, but you know what? The commissioners take the money, and then they vote in their favor. Not all the commissioners, but some of them. If you want to vote for somebody who's honest, vote for somebody who raises cash to run an election from friends and family, who doesn't take money from appeals attorneys like some of the people up here do, okay? Don't take money from developers who abuse the agriculture exemption laws. Don't take money from people that do business with the county. I don't care how bad you want to win an election. I'd rather lose 10 elections than start taking money from these people. Because when you get up there and you're a commissioner and a mayor, and I guarantee you that the mayor of this city and the 13 commissioners sitting up there, they don't want me to win, because my platform is to lower your taxes. All they give a damn about is the money bag. And if you don't think so, I had a conversation with one of the commissioners that I'll leave anonymous, and when I went in there to tell her I was running, the first thing she told me was, you know what? Eddie Gonzalez is running. That's their man. That's a politician. That's what they want. They want somebody that they can manipulate and hang on to the money bag. One of the reasons we voted for it to be independent is because all of us in this room are sick and tired of them, you know, they get all our money. We got 60 cranes out there with a bunch of tax revenue coming in, and it's never enough money. They're laying off cops, they're closing libraries. You know, could you imagine if we were in a recession, what would be going on? So that's the thing I think I bring to the table, honesty and integrity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dominguez. Mr. Garcia, what's your one skill?
Well, I proved it for 4 years, being the first elected Miami-Dade County property appraiser. I did my job. I did a great job, and that's the reason most of the people in here can afford to pay the taxes on their property because we reduced $60 billion from taxable value in Miami-Dade County. Nobody has the guts to do it like I did because of the market showed that the property were dropping, and we have after the crisis, the real estate crisis, and we reduced $60 billion with a B on taxable value. And that's the reason that you and me and everybody here can pay the taxes today, and we have the right assessment. That's the reason you see only 6% or 4% of the people appealing on those properties, and mainly commercial property, because they are agree with that. I have the endorsement of the AFL-CIO, and I also have the endorsement of the PBA. So I'm really proud that those people realize that I'm the perfect person to put back to be the property appraiser in Miami-Dade County so I can finish the job that I start. And that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep working for the establishing the fair and correct value of all the properties in Miami-Dade County. I'm gonna look for the low value or look for the high value. Mr. Dominguez mentioned that we use the $650,000. Mr. Dominguez, you bought your house for $650,000 and you have an assessment of $280,000. So you must be very happy.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. We could address this at the closing. Thank you. Mr. Goebel, what one skill do you have that makes you the ideal candidate for property appraiser?
I'm not going to say a skill, because I think to say a skill would be a little too self-serving. I'm going to say a motive, and I think the motive here is sincerity. The reason I'm here, I have a very sincere motive. I'm not a career politician. I don't want to be anything else but property appraiser. I don't want to be property appraiser for a tremendously long period of time. I want to be property appraiser until the office is fixed and running smoothly and efficiently. Look, I run a very successful appraisal firm. Okay, I've been the executive director at 3 South Florida appraisal firms. It's not a coincidence that my resume stacks up well with the other appraisers here in this race, despite the fact that I'm 30 or 40 years younger. It's not a coincidence. I hustle. I have the ambition. I goal set. I'm a leader. My motives are very, very sincere. I'm not running for mayor of Hialeah, in 2 years. I'm not a serial campaigner running for state rep or city commission. I simply want to be your property appraiser. So I think if you're going to tell me what is the defining motive here, it's sincerity. Thank you.
Mr. Armada, the question is, what is the one skill that makes you the ideal candidate? But there's something that you wanted to say in response to Mr. Goebel's statement, and I invite you to do that at this time if you would like to as well. And you can do your closing statement if you'd want.
Let me do that. Look, I was asked a question about what would we do to the elderly homeowners. And I said, we've got to go to the lower end of the value range. There's nothing wrong with that. Makes sense. If anyone else thinks that I'm going to allow someone that has a major property in Dade County not pay their proper taxes, they got a thing coming to them, because I am as tough as nails when it comes to establishing the values of major properties, commercial properties in Dade County. There's nothing that's going to happen with that. What I am saying in answer to the question was, what would you do to the elderly? And I will continue to insist. I will go to the lower end of the value range for homeowners, okay? That's where the assessments should be. Now, with regards to the question, folks, I've been told by some friends of mine that in essence, my platform is my credentials. Take a look at what I've brought for you. Read my background. I am the only person that is an MAI designated appraiser. I know in Dade County we've shunned away from the Appraisal Institute. I am glad that I am one of those few people in the 4-county area that has that designation. I'm glad that Carlos and I share the SRA designation. And I'm sure one day he will be an MAI and he will be an excellent appraiser. But today, I'm the one. And today I'm the one that can take care of this problem because I understand it, having served 6 years as a special magistrate. Please pay attention to my credentials. Look at what I've done. I worked 20 years in government. I worked 11 years 16 years in the city of Miami. 11 years working as the property and lease manager, running the real estate for the city. The last few of those years were very terrible because we were working under a very political administrator, and there was a very tough experience for me. But I remained, okay, until I went on my own. I didn't work for anybody else as an appraiser. I worked on my own. My credentials speak for themselves, and that's really my platform. I hope you would consider me for this position. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Dominguez, closing statement?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Look, I'll be honest with you guys. You know, we can talk about accreditation and all that stuff. At the end of the day, you want somebody in office who's going to get things done. I grew up in the city, I grew up in the county, and I got tired of watching and voting for people who talked a good game, who got there and didn't do anything. And it's about time, forget this race. Look, I want your vote, I want to be the appraiser. But in every race, let's start voting for people who are going to be honest, who are going to do the right thing, who's going to serve the community. I don't care if it's dog catcher, commissioner, mayor, appraiser. Start looking at what people bring to the table. And it's not about qualifications. Look, I spoke earlier, being a fee appraiser is not the same thing as being a mass appraiser, okay? Vote for somebody who's gonna identify the problem, who's gonna fix it, and somebody who doesn't take money from special interests. God knows we have enough of that garbage going on in Dade County. Let's start fixing it one race at a time, whether it's this race or another race. Vote your conscience, and hopefully you'll select me as your property appraiser. I'll always have an open door for you. And if I make a mistake, I'll own it. I won't blame it on others. I'll own my mistakes. And I'll always have an open door policy. My cell phone is on my cards. You can call me at any time. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you.
You know what I'm going to tell them? I am the most qualified to be the property appraiser in Miami-Dade County. I have the experience of 4 years to handle the property appraiser office. I got the experience of reduced $60 billion worth of taxable value in Miami-Dade County under my command when the market established going down. And let me tell you, I was very straight in my business as a real estate appraisal. When I walk in my office for the first time, 30 seconds already? Wow. Okay. When I work in my office for the first time, I got a paper in front of me to renovate my office for $75,000. You know what I did with that paper? I will not tell you because it's ugly. I destroyed the paper because I don't spend one penny from anybody, because every penny that I save for the taxpayers, I save it for my own money.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
That's it? Are we going to talk about it again or not?
These were closing statements.
That's it. August 26, vote for 66.
Thank you. Mr. Gobo?
Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's very clear. You have three types of candidates up here. Okay, you have one that represents, like Mr. Dominguez said, the old guard. They don't see that there's anything wrong. They don't think that there's much improvement needed. They want to remain and keep the status quo. If that's your objective, do not vote for me. You have your candidates. You have a second type of candidate, one who is a career politician or one who strives to be. As I've said before, I have no other political ambition. I simply want to be property appraiser. The third candidate is the one that possesses the most unique set of qualities. Not only am I a professional appraiser, one who's an expert at residential properties, the majority of properties here in Dade County are residential, but that has the formal education, that has the professional experience, that has the managerial and administrative experience. Over 430 hours of professional education over the past few years alone. Over 8,000 assignments completed, over $3 billion of South Florida real estate valued. If this were a job interview, there would be no second interview. It's a popularity contest. I humbly ask for your vote. Vote 67, Carlos Coble, August 26. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to take a break, everybody. Thank you, gentlemen.